A sudden announcement yesterday from the White House has put Greenland and Trump's ambitions for it back into the spotlight, to the fury of some. The announcement was that various US officials, including Trump's National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, along with the wife of J.D. Vance, that they would be visiting Greenland on Thursday this week. Greenland, you'll remember, is part of Denmark, but with an autonomous government for which elections were held just a couple of weeks ago. The new government is still process of negotiation. The Prime Minister of Denmark, Mette Frederiksen, said that neither Denmark nor Greenland had issued any kind of invitation for this trip. Now, maybe that wouldn't have been such an issue, except of course, for the fact that Trump has stated his firm belief that the US will annex Greenland, in spite of the fact that nobody there wants him to. Mette Frederiksen said this: "The visit from the United States cannot be seen in isolation from the public statements that have been made. In the kingdom," by which she means the Kingdom of Denmark, "we wish to cooperate with the Americans, but it must and shall be a cooperation based on the fundamental values of sovereignty and mutual respect between nations and peoples. This is something we take seriously." It remains baffling to a number of observers why the Trump administration continues with the approach that they've established on this. If they're concerned about security, they can request that the US military have more bases on the island. After all, they used to have many more than they do now. Now they only have one. It has always been clear that were they to ask, the answer would be yes. If they are focused on access to minerals, they can request permissions to extract minerals. Again, the answer would be yes. But instead, they seem to be going out of their way to insult Danes and Greenlanders and to assert that they will only settle for owning the place outright. Hence why Danes have complained that it's not clear to them what Trump actually even wants, because on any traditional measure of the pursuit of geopolitical interests, his statements and his actions don't seem to match. Because Trump land seems to be a special land where wishful thinking becomes reality, Trump and other officials have claimed that the recent parliamentary result in Greenland, where parties with pro-independence from Denmark policies, they did the best, somehow that means that they want to become dependents on the United States instead. But a recent poll on that question specifically showed 85% of Greenlands were saying, "Thank you very much, but no." One of the inconvenient facts that never makes its way through the MAGA veil of magical thinking. The other inconvenient fact is that while the general election has passed, the country is currently engaged in local elections, and that has added to the fury at the timing of the visit. So, for instance, Aya Chemnitz, a Greenland MP in the Danish Parliament, called the visit an untimely interference in the island's politics. And she said this: "Everyone who tries to interfere but is not part of Greenlandic society must stay away. We are at a point in time in Greenland's history that is particularly challenging because we are so influenced by what is happening abroad." Now, the Second Lady's office said that she would be visiting historical sites, learning about Greenland heritage, and attending the Avanata Kumasursu, Greenland's national dog sled race. Apparently, the organising body behind the race, KNQK, told local media that it had received a large but confidential sum of money from the US consulate in Greenland. A large payment for a dog race? Weird that Doge didn't pick up on that one, you would think. It's all very well Usha Vance doing all those touristy things. Some of the US officials coming along with her, they have different itineraries, namely visiting the Pituffik US military base there. It was only a couple of weeks ago that hundreds of Greenlanders were taking to the streets to protest against President Trump's designs on their island. They suggested a new meaning for the MAGA acronym: Make America Go Away. Could catch on. Greenland's Prime Minister Moot B. Ejid used the occasion to say that the Greenlanders' efforts to be diplomatic, quote, just bounces off Donald Trump and his administration in their mission to own and control Greenland. And he said this week that the planned trip was highly aggressive. And he said this: what is the National Security Advisor doing in Greenland? The only purpose is to demonstrate power over us. His mere presence in Greenland will no doubt fuel American belief in Trump's mission, and the pressure will increase. Seems to me there might be a few more protests visible on this particular occasion. Denmark has agreed with Greenland that it will send police reinforcements for the duration of the visit. Brian Hughes, the National Security Council spokesman for the United States, was unabashed. The United States has a vested security interest in the Arctic region, and it should not be a surprise the National Security Advisor and Secretary of Energy are visiting a US space base to get first-hand briefings from our service members on the ground. We also look forward to experiencing Greenland's famous hospitality and are confident that this visit presents an opportunity to build on partnerships that respects Greenland's self-determination and advances economic cooperation. This is a visit to learn about Greenland, its culture, history and people. Now, if I came to your home uninvited and pronounced that I was looking forward to experiencing your famous hospitality, I'm guessing you would be at least tempted to be somewhat less than hospitable in return. Right now, I'm guessing that the US respect for Greenland's self-determination will last for as long as it takes for them to discover whether or not leveraging significant slices of cash in the direction of the locals might not change their resolve somewhat in relation to these questions. It could turn out to be that there is indeed a price that would do that. Human beings through history have demonstrated that they often do have a price. That price, should it exist in this case, will no doubt be higher because of the cack-handed way the administration has gone about it so far. I mean, insulting people, refusing to rule out taking their territory through military force, and pushing in without invitation. Those things, they all put the price up. This interview by J.D. Vance was given new life on social media over the weekend, leading to some papers to report it as if it was actually carried out this weekend.
That frankly, Denmark, which controls Greenland, it's not doing its job and it's not being a good ally. So you have to ask yourself, how are we going to solve that problem, solve our own national security? If that means that we need to take more territorial interest in Greenland, that is what President Trump is going to do, because he doesn't care about what the Europeans scream at us. He cares about putting the interests of America's citizens first.
The breathtaking arrogance of those words. Now, it may well be that there is no price. National sovereignty and identity can be that way, especially when it is hard won. But like I say, clearly, this development is signalling to Denmark and the world that the Trump administration remains committed to this, and with some urgency, since it's really wasting no time in ratcheting up the pressure. But what happens if the flashing of money does not suddenly melt the Greenlanders' resolve? I suppose there's nothing to stop the US requesting a bigger military presence, knowing that it will be agreed to, and then once that has been established, they could leverage that presence in various ways to push the parameters a bit further and a bit further. Again, that would have been a lot easier to do if they hadn't blundered into talking about possibly invading in the first place. But we are where we are. I don't think that even the Trump team would believe it would actually be sensible to militarily invade. I mean, of course, they could do it, Tiny population, it would be the special military operation that Vladimir Putin dreamed about, the sudden presence of overwhelming military force that would be almost certain to provoke pragmatic defeat. If that happened, though, it would constitute an attack on a NATO country, which would be de facto the end of the alliance, and it would de facto almost certainly make the attempt by leaders such as Keir Starmer in trying to keep the Trump operation just the right side of the line recognised as normality, finally and clearly a failure. And it would be wholly unnecessary to achieve any strategic interests of the United States. The only thing it would achieve, better than any other course of action could do, would be to make Trump feel that he had personally achieved his legacy, the greatness of a president who left the territory of the United States larger and more impressive than it was when he found it, maybe earning his right to have his head on Mount Rushmore along with the others. Now that obviously is not a geopolitical objective for the United States. It is instead the folly of an emperor. We will see what version finally holds out in the face of the reality of the wishes of the Greenlanders, currently to be left to their own devices.